Hey, welcome back to ShredMentor Live. This is episode 50.
Way to go, dude! Right!
Yeah, episode 50. It's kind of hard to believe that we're already this far into it, but it has been more than a year since we started. Anyway, I'm your host, Jason Aaron Wood, and tonight I'm going to help you kind of break out of that habit of staying in one position all the time. It can be very limiting. And while there are a lot of things, especially when it comes to like the minor pentatonic scale, there's a lot of stuff. Like I'm going to do some, sorry, I'm tuned down a half step, so I'll call it B minor, but it's actually B flat. But anyway, yeah, loads and loads of stuff I can do right there in the 7th position, but you know, eventually I'm going to run out of stuff I can do there, right? So I'm going to show you the ropes of the, the position shifting Olympics tonight, all right? And I'm going to show you a lot of different things. At this point, it's a list of 24 different methods that you can use, and they're subtle movements, but I do want to show them to you because, yeah, it doesn't always work out the way you think it's going to happen. And it might be 25 methods because one of them is going to be something directly out of a lesson that I taught 2 weeks ago with one of my students. So if you're watching Bev, then you'll recognize this melody because this is actually the thing that spurred this episode into existence. So I want to share these things with you tonight. We're going to be doing all kinds of stuff. So yeah, why don't we get right to it? Control panel, please let me know in the chat if you can hear me, because that would be a big plus for a show about music. And there's my handy the Book of Sequences animation in your face all the time here, but yeah, and you know, can't go wrong with sequences. And I bring that up because we're going to be using a lot of sequences tonight over and over again. All right, so hey Matthew, welcome and thank you for confirming you can hear me. All right, we're going to dive right into this because a couple things first, okay? Before we dive into the list of the different things, I think there's 24 or 25 methods. We'll see when we get there. It's a lot. So we're going to be very busy tonight. But I want you to have your guitar in your hand and at least try this as I do it. I'm not going to shred through everything, but I am going to show you slowly what some of the nuances of the movements are so that you can do this kind of stuff yourself. Some of it's just general advice that will help you, but I'll show you how to develop those areas as well and how to act on that advice. So everything's a method here. We got at least 24 methods, maybe 25, depends on how one thing I'm thinking about is covered in here or not. Anyway, before we talk about those methods, I want you to know one thing that's very important here, and this is a habit that every guitar player has at first, okay? And the idea of picking your hand up, I'm at the 7th position, I want to be at the 2nd position, so you just over here, right? Just abandoning everything your hand was doing and moving somewhere else. That is not going to help you, okay? The hand is not a solid block. So get out of the habit of picking your whole hand up and moving it all at once. It's a delicate dance of the fingertips, okay? So one finger is typically going to be holding down a note as the rest of the hand moves in different ways, okay? The hand should sort of flex and bend around whichever finger that's currently holding down the final note, just that you're playing right now as you're getting ready to play the next note, okay? So if I wanted to play I'll just show you this real quick. This will be ground I cover again a little bit, but let's say if I'm going to play a 2-note per string diminished 7th, okay? That would be every minor third. Okay, you see me moving and it's a little bit more fluid. What I'm not doing is I'm not keeping my fingers a minor third distance apart non-stop, okay? I'm at the 1st fret, I'm at the 4th fret. While I hold that down, I bring my 1st finger over to the 2nd fret. So my 1st finger and my 4th finger are actually only 2 frets away from each other, and the fingers between have to just get the hell out of the way a little bit. And walking, all right? And that brings us to one other thing I want to point out to you, okay? I'm bringing my hands a little closer together, but essentially my wrist is turning a little bit too. but I'm still holding something down. I'm holding one of the strings down. So I want you to notice this little pivot movement that takes place. Typically it's going to be on, well, it could be on whatever finger you're holding down, but typically it's going to be on your pinky or your index finger, okay? And I'll show you how. Pinky. Okay? As I bring it, I'm not just bringing my hand closer. I'm getting ready to play that. So I'm swinging, I'm slightly twisting on the fingertip. So as I bring my hand back out, as I contract and then re-expand my hand, I'm just doing a very slight twist or pivot motion on that fingertip, right? So I want you to be aware of that because it's a very subtle nuance that you won't pick up if you're trying to go too fast and just, right? That's what, you don't think about it too much, but I want you to develop this into your motor memory as part of the autopilot, part of the technique of how you approach your fretboard when you do this, because otherwise that picking up your whole hand and moving it somewhere else, that's not how you do this, all right? So if I wanted to play a sequence of thirds, like up the strings, so notice one finger still down, new sequence. Right? Using a bunch of these different techniques here. But anyway, there's a bit of a pivot and you're constantly going from relaxed to expanded to relaxed to contracted, and somewhere in there, that's where you're going to be doing it, and you might be pivoting on a fingertip. So I want you to be aware of that being involved all throughout this, because I'm not always going to notice that I'm doing it because I take it for granted a little bit, but I want you to be aware that this is part of what happens, and it's going to be happening in a lot of these situations I show you tonight. Okay, so first thing, okay, one of the best ways that I think you can do this, especially when it comes to just playing vocabulary, not just playing and practicing scales exactly, but just learning some licks. Okay, so using like the blues scale as an extension of the minor pentatonic scale, so that you're not dealing with 6 modes, you're dealing with 5 modes. There's just an extra note you play in there if you want that extra flavor. It makes it a little bit more manageable to use the blues scale. Just think of it as the minor pentatonic scale with an extra flavor that you can take it or leave it. Okay, so I'm going to use E minor pentatonic. Okay, now that might be, okay, there's all kinds of stuff in the home bass. Right in. Yeah. Yeah, all kind of cool stuff that you can kind of do uniquely right there. I mean, I guess the sequence of 3 you could do it from anywhere. That's not unique to that, okay? So anyway, just, yeah, like, it's all very home base, right? Now there's also, when your root note of your scale, right? That's very much more of the, it's actually a 3-note per string kind of thing, but that's what the 5th of your scale, the B in this case, is the lower note on the highest string. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, your 4th mode in. Right? And a lot of diagonal motion there, a lot more fun. I get, you know, at the same time, I'm actually just playing the same 6 notes over and over again. All right, so anyway, phrases that take place in different areas of the scale are going to make it a little bit easier for you to recognize where you are. So if I want to connect stuff that I just did there, that's another phrase I use. So I can figure out what note I'm going to slide to. So like it's very much part of one melody in a way. It's very continuous, and it's not like I guess this is an extra method, so maybe you have 25 or 26 methods here. But like doing a bend, sliding up and doing another bend, or just doing, whether you're bending in the first place or not, sliding and then suddenly bending to yet another note even higher than where you're sliding to is another one. So I go. Bend here from the 7th into the root, jumped up to the 3rd, but bend into the 4th. Bend into the 5th. Right, so I'm kind of getting outside of this single 2-note per string kind of thing. All right, there's another method. Get outside of the 2-note per string way of dealing with the minor pentatonic scale in the first place. Adopt more fingers. At least get used to what fingers you would have to use if you try to approach the minor pentatonic as a 3-note per string pattern. Right? Even with repeat notes, just have an idea. I might be able, if I do this, then there's only one location for this B, only one location for that D. That E is only there. But if I do this, there's 3 locations for this E. Here, here, and there as a bend. So I have a lot of options now, and it gives me a lot more ways that I can be expressive with it and also move around a little bit. So now I just slid. So yeah, a lot of this comes down to phrasing. I'm sorry, it's a lot for your first one, and I kind of went outside the lines there and covered some of the other stuff. But anyway, learning phrases that take place in different areas. So and then right, so anyway, phrases that sort of are more easy to play in one position of the scale than another. Okay, that would be your first thing. Another one which is important is to learn your scales not just across the one axis, across the strings, which is what we always see, but don't forget to learn them up and down the same string. Okay, and so just, there's a lot of ways you can do this, but first of all, just a simple mordent. A mordent is basically you play a note and you play, or an upper mordent would be choose a note, play the note above it, and then come back to the original note. Okay, you can do this with a hammer-on and a pull-off. So it's a really good. I'm going to use the E minor scale once again, or if you're still learning a fretboard, you might want to do natural notes. And I know I'm calling these the notes that they would be if I was tuned to E standard, but I'm kind of in E flat standard. But forget that. Anyway, I'll do the E. I'll do the A minor, which is natural note. Knowing your scale in that way, being able to play it as a melodic device will also help you to navigate where the hell you are as you find yourself like, oh, okay, no. So doing a lot of work on just one string there, but I am giving myself the luxury of another string to get some of the notes I want. But as you see, it's very much about mobility up and down that one string. So it's a great way to start to really just find your way, is knowing the scale in the first place, knowing the interval patterns, the interval spacings between all of the notes and the neighboring notes around them. So that will be another one. Knowing your scales, learning them up and down the same string, not just across the strings. That is really vital that you don't spend all your time just learning it that way, because these first three here are just about being able to recognize where you are on the fretboard, essentially. Okay. The next one is very, very similar to that, but you're dealing with more notes at a time, not just a note and its immediate neighbor. But this time, and you can do this with like 3 notes at a time too, but I'm sort of skipping ahead, but chunking pieces of your scale. Dealing with your hexachords. So this is one I use a lot. I'm going back to E minor for this one, just because I like to stay in the middle of the fretboard, basically. But hexachords are 6-note scale fragments. So we're dealing a little bit more with playing your scales on multiple strings and stuff. But learn that, starting from note 1 of the scale, if there's a half step at 7 and 8 on both strings, when I move up a note in the scale, there is still going to be a half step at 7 and 8 on both strings. Right? That's not going to change. So that's going to, there's only 2 half steps in every octave. So knowing where they are is going to be pretty important. F sharp and G, B and C. F sharp and G again. And B and C, B and C again. Here's B and C on this string. Here's B and C again. F sharp and G in the next octave. F sharp and G again. Now I'm back to where I started. F sharp and G in the next octave, B, C in the next octave. So now, getting to where you know all the modes, that's fantastic. That's the completed scale at that point, once you know where they all are. But more importantly, you can actually use what I call the 3 modes strategy to help establish this in more manageable day-to-day chunks. So just pick one mode, go up a mode, go back. Go down a mode, go back. So the mode you start with is sort of the central mode. All right, you're playing 2 of the same notes on both of the strings, but with different fingers, and then you're just going 1 note out on both strings in each direction. So you get a little bit more of a peripheral awareness of where you are, and so you can establish, modes 1, 2, and 3 today. 2, 3, 2. Pass back through the middle one every time. Get used to the transition between these phrases. And you can do this with anything you're playing. I'm just playing the 6 notes ascending, but I just started to do some sequences with it too. Sequence of thirds. And so whatever you happen to do within those notes, you just apply the same formula and the same rhythm, but rearrange the fingers as needed, depending on where they are and which fingers they most naturally fall under. Okay, so that's a pretty important one. We're going to talk about sequences a lot though tonight, right? So that's a big part of this, because if you're just playing that little piece of the scale up and down, you're not really getting a lot of useful motor memory out of this. You're just kind of learning how to recite the same notes in the order that they occur in the scale. And that's very unmusical for the most part. It's not like we never just ascend a section of a scale or anything, but that shouldn't be the only way that you do melodies, okay? So anyway, yeah, those are the kind of like the 3 big ones for kind of recognizing where you are. There is one that's actually at the end of my list here, but there's a 4th one I'm going to show you too. And this is a sort of secret pattern recognition that it's not really ever, I guess it's actually in every single scale book, but every scale book shows you this, but no one ever calls any attention to it, and probably no one even pays any attention to it. But I have this ridiculous diagram on my ShredMentor Facebook page. If you look through all the pictures, you'll see this ridiculous, huge, I don't know how many, if I don't know, 17, 25 strings or something like that. It's not meant to be a real guitar. It's just to show you the pattern and the way it repeats. So I only have a 6-string guitar right now, but I'm going to play a major scale right now, okay? And I'm going to play a G major scale, 3 notes per string, okay? And I'm going to show you this. There's going to be 2 strings in a row that are whole step, whole step. All right, so I'm going to do it again. 3, 5, 7, 3, 5, 7. If I start from anywhere else, it's still going to, the major scale will still be this way. It just happens to start. If I start at 3, that means the next 2 notes are at 5 and 7. So 2 whole steps, and then the next string is going to be 2 whole steps. All right, then I'm going to move up a half step. Well, no, I'm not going to move up a half step. I'm going to move up a fret. And then I'm going to play half step, whole step, and then I'm going to do it again. Half step, whole step. All right, so it's kind of convenient so far. I only have 2 shapes, and then I just play it 2 strings in a row. Now I'm going to just, I happen to move up a fret here, but the next shape is whole step, half step. And then I get to do it again. Whole step, half step. So what's really wonderful about the way the guitar tuning works out is that you have this. Now, there are 7 notes, and I only dealt with 6 of those notes being the lowest note of the string. All right, there is sort of another one. This is G. G. So I'm going to move to the next G on the next string so that I have an, that's still going to be there. If I'm at the root note of the major scale, it's whole step on one string, go to the next string, same fret, whole step, unless you're at the 2nd and 3rd string, but anywhere else. Now, what we didn't talk about is the 7th note that we left out. The string below that also has 2 whole steps. All right, so basically, in terms of the 3 shapes yet, there's 2 whole steps, there's a half step, then a whole step, and there's a whole step, then a half step. Just talking about just the shape on one string at a time. The order that those happen in across the strings can also help you find where you are. If you know that there are 3 of these, that's 1, that's 2, that's 3. Now the next one is the half step, then whole step. Then it's the whole step, half step. Now I'm out of strings, but there it is again. Just, you know. Right? So knowing that they happen in pairs like that, well, 2 of them happen in pairs and 1 of them happens 3 times, but 3 of one shape, 2 of the next shape, 2 of the next shape, that's 7. You've exhausted all 7 notes as the first note you play on the string. So that is a little bit of a hidden pattern. It's more of a fingering pattern. It's the 3 notes at a time spacing that you're going to play. So depending on where you happen to be, if you're just messing around and let's say I play one of these, I can either do it one more time on the string below it, and that makes this the root note. And that suddenly I'm in the, E minor. And that means that the next 2 strings are going to be the half step, whole step shape. And that means the next 2 strings are going to be the whole step, And if I have another string, let's say no. Half step, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, half step. So yeah, 3 of these, 2 of these, 2 of these. That's the way I usually think of this. It makes it a lot easier to not lose my place. So hopefully that made sense. If not, I'm sure I could probably explain it more clearly. But I'm already 24 minutes in, and I've only touched on 4 of the 25 or 26 things. So moving right along. If you have questions, throw them in the chat, because then I'll catch that much quicker. Okay, so so the next section of this is going to be dealing with a lot of ways to use sliding technique, okay? Because that's going to be your primary technique here, aside from that pivot thing, which we'll deal with a lot more in the next section. But for sliding, okay, first of all, I already have a thing that forces you to basically change positions, but basically doing the same basically doing the same slide with 3 of the 4 fingers. So let's say you start with your pinky. I'm going to go from A to B. And then that puts my middle finger right over the A I originally played, so I'll do it again with that. And then I can actually still reach that pretty well with my first finger. And now, hey, look, I went from I don't know, the 7th position to, I don't know, the 12th position. Because, yeah, to have my pinky at 10 means I'm probably right about 7. So you don't have to do all that. You can just do 2 of them. You know, now I'm at the 10th position, right? So you can use something like that. It's a method. You, of course, if you want to use all 3 slides, that means your melody is going to need to have that note in there 3 times. But it kind of almost has the same effect as kind of requires a lot of finesse to be able to do that well 3 times in a row, because you want your slides to sound identical to each other. So doing it with 3 separate fingers right after each other is actually kind of a challenge in itself. But that is one way you can kind of get into it, because as you see, you know, so I just used it twice just to kind of get up into, I guess I was at the 17th position after a while. But I started off at the 7th position, so it's quite a lot of mobility I got out of doing that. So anyway, that's the first one. Okay, the next one, this is actually probably the most obvious one on the list, but the big slide. So let's say I'm going to, at A, and I'm going to go to the octave of it. So in some of these, you're seeing the mistake that comes with it, because I'm doing a little more poorly than I wanted to, but I want to show you what I'm doing to get pretty close to it every time here, though. A lot of people will make the mistake of going, watch my eyes, right? Instead, watch my eyes this time. Okay, what did I do differently? Okay, so what I did is, instead of following my finger with my eyes, which is like if you're driving, you're looking at the front edge of your hood while driving, you're not really looking ahead. What I did the second time is I looked where I need to put my finger, then I looked at the new target, and I put my finger there. Be looking at the fret where you're going to put your finger, not where your finger is. Don't watch your finger, just watch your finger arrive and then get to the next destination with your eyes. Oops. Right, so going back and forth, you know, in 2 octaves on 1 string. So notice A, oops, A, G, F, E. Got to go easy on myself and hit an open string there. But anyway, that's one way to do it. Eyes on the target, not on your hand as it's moving. That's the important thing. Which means you can get from anywhere, you know, so you can be like, and so that's a quick way to get way the hell out of the position you're in if you want. Just do a straight up octave slide or any interval you want. You know? So my eyes, just so you see the thought process here. First, I went to the octave of the same note. But I also bent from it as I arrived. I'd like to hit it correctly if I could do that. The next one I did was just the fifth of the note I was coming from. Going from 7 to 14, so the fifth of the scale to the second of the next octave. And doing the bend again. And then going up to the, let's see. And then I think I went straight up to the seventh of the scale at the 22nd fret and did a whole step. Right, so you have to kind of make decisions about where you're going to go. And I'm throwing bends in here too, so I not only I'm going to hit the E, but I want to bend into the E, which means I have to hit the D. There's kind of quite a few decisions that have to be made in order to do that. And then, I'm botching it because I'm doing really, really big slides here, but just to demonstrate, you have to practice the slide you want to do a bunch before you decide to go on stage in front of strangers in the dark and try to play it. But anyway, all right. The next one is, this other slides on this are going to be a lot less extreme, or mostly less extreme. The next one is what I think of as the slide in from below, all right? And I kind of did this earlier, but just showing you where the notes are. But it has a really interesting exaggerated effect, and we'll talk about that exaggerated slide later too. But anyway, so like let's say, I'm in A minor. And I run out of notes on that string. It's a great way to... The idea is I'm going to run out of fingers, right? Normally, I would just go to my first finger on the next string if I had one, but I don't. So I'm going to start from the fret I was already playing on that string and slide. So when you do a slide, start from within the actual fret space. Don't start from just randomly somewhere, because the note you start on might actually be outside the key. And even just for a split second, that might be audible. That's going to diminish the quality of the performance and the listening experience, all right? So yes, these little nuances count for a lot, all right? So anyway, if I wanted A, B, C, D, E, F on one string, while C is down, I'm going to put my first finger down on A and slide a whole fourth from A to D. Just kind of going with 3 notes at a time through the harmonic minor scale, but on one string. So from A to D, not this and not, that's fine too, we'll talk about that in a minute. But and then D, E, F, G sharp, from D to G sharp, so I'm going to look here. So anyway, the slide in from below. It can be actually a very expressive method of getting out of there as well. And getting extra notes if you like. You don't have to do it when you ran out of notes or ran out of strings to play another 3 notes on, but it's a really useful way to approach that. That's a good situation in which to use that, let's say it that way. Okay, next. 4 notes per string by joining 2 3-note per string patterns. Okay, so I'll use, let's see. I'll start from F. I'll do A minor right now from F. I'll do it from E actually. I'll do A harmonic minor. Right, so I keep switching positions because I'm sliding out of one 3-note per string position into the next. So just see how I just isolated one string and did that. That's how you establish this. You don't do it with the entire set of strings. It's just too much to remember. You're biting off more than you can chew in that case. So just take one little area. Okay. Anyway, this one, as I mentioned before, this one example is actually kind of inspired by, it's essentially almost the same melody from a lesson I had with a student 2 weeks ago. And I want to talk about one other thing that kind of comes along with this, okay? Because this is also what inspired the name of tonight's episode, which is the position shifting Olympics, okay? There's a lot of complex motions that have to happen, and it's not always one finger at a time. Mike, hello everyone. I'm sorry I'm late. Hey man, I'm glad to have you here. Welcome, Mike. So this next thing, okay, this is based on the same idea. It's 4 notes per string, based on a 3-note per string, 2 connected 3-note per string modes at a time, per string, right? So starting on E, you probably just start with the 3 notes, the 3 fingers over top of their frets, and just do an open string here. Now, slide. Now this is where that your hand is not a solid block, so don't try to move the whole thing at one time. It comes into play, because here, as I slide from D to E, right, I do that as a whole hand. My next note is now down a fret, so I have like. Now, if I was doing this fast, this is going to be a problem, because I have to slide and then I have to slide again. I don't want to be doing that necessarily any more than I have to, and it turns out you don't have to. So I'm going to show you what you do here. Okay, I'm going to show you the nuance of the move here, because I don't want you to have to go 2, 3, slide back, or jump, or stretch all of a sudden. All right, so I'm going to show you a movement that makes this a little bit more sensible. All right. That's it there. I'm trying to remember what the melody was now. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Anyway, what you would do, and when you slide up, rather than slide your whole hand, you're going to spread your hand out. So you're sort of anticipating going to this note before you even do the slide to the note before. You're actually 2 notes ahead of yourself. So here's the idea then. All right. All right, it's one movement. I'm coming from 2 with my first finger, notice. I'm going to slide and stretch at the same time. Right. So anyway, that's something to kind of keep in mind. Sometimes you move 2 fingers, you do a whole move where your hand comes into a different position. 2 fingers arrive at 2 different positions at the same time. My first finger went up from 2 only to 3. My pinky went up from 5 to 7. So I did a half-step move with this finger by going. So I spread my hand out as part of the slide. All right, so anyway, this is a little bit more on the advanced side of how you approach things. When I show you like this, it probably doesn't look all that advanced, but it's something that does not occur to, well, in my experience, most guitarists I've worked with until I show it to them. All right, so I just wanted to share that with you. As you're sliding between positions, that can actually come in handy. So try to find ways, well, you know, if you're finding yourself having to slide and then slide again to get back in the other direction, try a move like that. All right, so that's one place where I recently ran into that, but it's something that I kind of instinctively knew what to do because I've run into these a lot. I do a lot of position shifting, okay? Okay, so the next one is something I just covered a great deal in lessons today. It's what I called it. It's actually, again, this is in the book of sequences, so you can find that in, you know, look here, ShredMentorOnline.com/products, right below me there. Okay, this one's in there. The 6-note partial zigzag. Essentially, the zigzag means the notes themselves. If you were to write them on the staff, they just go up and down and up and down and up and down. In this case, it's only partial. You're going to go up 6 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then come back down 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 4. Okay, so in E minor, that would be. Alright, so I'll start from E minor down here. And I can actually slide to another note and do it again from there. So that's the 4 of the scale, so I'll go up to 5. I just need to know my hexachords, which is what that thing I showed you earlier. That's my 5 shape. Half step, whole step, followed by whole step, half step. Right, so slide into 5, that's half step, whole step, followed by whole step, half step. Now it's my 2 shape. The place with the half step, whole step, twice in a row. And then go up a note, and then I have that's 3. 3 of, let's see, no, it's a 6. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 4, scale degree wise, 5. Do the 5 of the scale. Now that's 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. So I'm sliding up to the 2. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6, 5. So I'm going to slide up to the 6. So I just need to kind of deal with 6 notes at a time and just pay attention to which one I'm going to. Nope. All right, so anyway, yeah, that's the 6-note partial zigzag. It's a little bit awkward because where it leaves you off is on the same finger that you started on. So looping it back from the same note is a little more awkward. You kind of have to come in with the flat of your finger on the last note so that you can still be on your fingertip. It's not a big problem, but I find it a lot more comfortable to just go fingertips, move up or down to some other note. Right, so I mean, it could be, anyway, a wider jump. I jumped 2 modes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 4, slide to 6 of the scale. I'm at the 2 of the scale now, slid right to the 5th of the scale. I slid to the 4th and then did a bend into 5. So anyway, yeah, I went from the 7th position to the 22nd position by doing that. So just choosing how much you want to slide. So this is more sliding technique stuff. Okay, next one, I just straight up named the position shifting zigzag. This is once again from the book of sequences. Again, in your face sequences. All right, this one is one of my favorite shreddy things that gives you some diagonal movement here. But oh, bad ending. This is what a bad ending is. Right? Yeah, that's sad. Anyway, yeah, that's, let's see, 6 to 1/8 notes. Sorry, could you say that? Could you clarify more, Mike? I'm not sure what you're asking to be sure there. But yeah, this one is basically sextuplets, though. And this actually is another version of where it uses 2 different 3-note per string patterns, and you basically just start with 3. You start on the middle note out of 3, you go up, slide it down a position, come up and down, then move on to the next string, just descend 3 more notes. Now you're on the lowest of 3 notes. You can move up 1 note without even changing position, because you've already changed position to that slide. Start on the middle note here, go up, slide down a note in the scale, up and down, descend. Start with the middle note here, slide, and then go up and down, descend. And then that's a fun one. So Mike was saying you're going up 6, dropping back 2, and oh yeah, yes, that's right, yeah. So plus 6, minus 2. Yeah, it could be 8th notes, could be 16th notes. I see what you mean. I'm sorry. Yeah. So yeah, the formula is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 4. Okay, that's. It could also be the other way around. Basically, the long piece is 6 notes long. Okay, and then you go 2 notes back in the other direction. So you could start descending 6 notes. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3. You can do the little short piece first. So you could do like 4, 5, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So you just do 2 notes. Well, your third note up is the beginning of 6 notes down. And you could do 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's like, it looks like a check mark if you kind of draw out the notes in the shape of the melody up and down. So whatever, one of them is 6 notes long, and then the other one is just 2 notes back from there. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. So the other one, let's see, 6 triplets. Let's see. So you're going up 6, back, dropping back, and sliding up to where you're starting off again. And yeah, so exactly. Yep, that's what I'm doing. I'm starting the sequence from another point in the scale. So it does require you to kind of get used to what the new shape is, what new finger combination you're going to do, what it looks like as far as the interval spacing and stuff like that. But again, just doing 2 of them in a row at first, just work on connecting 2 of them, and you're already starting to establish the really meaningful stuff, not the individual shapes, but how you get between them and make it flow the whole time. That's also very important. 6 triplets. Let's see. Well, let's see. I don't know if the 6 triplets part is the... It should be 12 notes long in this one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Start again. Here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Because it's 12, you can use the power of 12 strategy, which is accented however you want. Basically break it down into 4 sets of 3. 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. You do it the way I did it, which was like 16th notes in 6/8, which is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and you can also do it as like 16th notes in 3/4, which would be like 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and the triplet one. Anyway, stop myself from doing one of the next steps too early. That's what that was. Okay, that's the position shifting zigzag, though. I think it's one of the most shred-friendly things that... So much fun. I love that one. Okay, sliding mordents on a single string. I did this a little bit already early on. Like, all right, it's a good way to do it, to learn your scales up and down on the string, but you can do other patterns as well. So again, if I'm in like A harmonic minor here, So yeah, you might recognize that one from 2 weeks ago if you happen to catch that show, episode 48. That was something that when we talked about flowing, smooth legato, that was one of the things that was thrown in there. But anything that involves a great deal of sliding is going to automatically put you in another position. So there's that one. Sliding mordents. Another one, okay, a mordent, again, is basically, it's a simple figure where you play a note. An upper mordent is where you take the next note up and then come back to the original note. So it's like 1, 2, 1. All right, so when beginners learn how to do a hammer-on, typically they show me a hammer-on, okay, and it automatically includes a pull-off because it's just, you know, just getting the thing. What you do with a hammer is clack, and then you pick it back up. So they're kind of doing the pull-off, you know. But a hammer-on is just. But here you're actually doing it on purpose. So that's called an upper mordent. A lower mordent is same idea. You're just going to the next lower note and back. So anyway, it's a 3-note phrase, and so like the beginning of Bach, you know. Right? When you actually look at the notation for that, the first note is not A, G, A. It's actually just an A with a little squiggle and a line through it, which means the lower mordent, which means... And so that's literally written right into it with a symbol not notated that way, okay, on the actual official Bach notation. Fun food for thought there. But anyway, so doing this, you can do it actually with a wider interval, though. It's not standard, but the same concept can be applied to a wider interval. So let's say, you know, I'm going to do an upper mordent, right? But instead of, I might do like 6. Yeah. So I like to, this is kind of a trick I like to do with my sixths anyway. It's a good way to know your intervals up and down. You can do it with thirds probably too, like. And I guess that wasn't all thirds, but anyway, I'm following my inner ear here tonight. Anyway, so yeah, sliding mordents, sort of stretching the mordent past its typical usage there, but it's the same melodic concept. Pick a note, go up to another note, and come back to the original note. Mordent. Anyway, next is the expressive slide. Okay, now this is simple. This is probably one of the things that you might do all the time. I've already done it about 1,000,000 times today, just because that's just how I play. But anyway, like. A little subtle thing that'll get you about a half step or a whole step. I especially like to do it with whole steps, so I go down at the 7th position. I started at the 5th. So it's actually just part of the way I play, rather than doing the bend. So a lot of these are all whole step slides. So it's a simple expressive slide. It's something that's, you don't even notice that I'm doing it so much, like, but I end up moving all over the fretboard because I'm actually I'm sort of replacing bends with slides. I'm purposely using it as a replacement for a bend. Just a little more subtle. It doesn't have the twanginess of the. the between the tones kind of thing. That's every note I am hitting literally is a fretted note. Like I was saying, isn't it better to try to keep it even numbers as far as string skipping when you go down and downward slant pick? No, not necessarily. I mean, it depends on what you mean to play. The string skipping, I didn't actually do any string skipping, I don't think, but there is something that does come with that too. I mean, and also it's a good, you can do the same thing like with so let's see. So as far as like the downward slant picking. So you mean as far as like the diagonal kind of movement? Sorry, Mike, I hate to keep asking you to clarify, but what do you mean by that? Yeah, let me know. I think I know what you mean, but I'm not totally sure, so I don't want to waste your time answering a question you're not really asking. The exaggerated slide. Now I talked about this, but this is something. The slide in from below is a form of an exaggerated slide. So it could be with any finger from any note. You just go for a wider interval. Right? I guess this is probably one of the other most obvious thing, but you got to get your eyes ready to go look at where you're trying to go. A. Let's do a sequence with it. G. F. E. I'm basically sliding. I'm starting on a note that I'm eventually going to slide to the same octave of, to the same note in the next octave rather, from its third. So it's actually a 6. From G sharp to E is a 6. From A to F is a 6th. G up to B is the third, and then G, well, from B to G is the 6th there too. A, B, C, A. Sometimes I overslide. Anyway, the idea is there. It's just ways to kind of get out of it. So yeah, the exaggerated slides are going to have a more of a whoosh into them because of that wide interval, and you really, you still want to kind of try to arrive at that note nearly instantaneously, but obviously it's more exaggerated than a bend in this case, and you can get a much wider interval than you would trying to do that thing with a bend, because you just you try to do a whole octave with a bend, and let me know how quick you put on your next set of strings. Anyway, so this is a fun one, last slide one. Then we're going to get into some stretching stuff. And man, I only have 3 minutes, so I guess I'm going a little over tonight. Anyway, the next thing is to tap and then slide in from below. All right, and that's a fun one. So A, B, C, C in the next octave, and while I'm holding that down, I'll just move up. So I had to hear a C, and then I went to A and bend into the B below it. So here, right, but I'm doing. Right, like I said, kind of has a George Lynch, Warren DeMartini vibe with the slides. Oh yeah, I get that. I get what you mean. Downward, upward pick, slanting when making a run. Are you talking about like just the angle of the pick to try to get that tap? That's just something I kind of do by accident, really. It just sort of gradually just happens anyway. I don't really consciously do that. As far as keep it even numbers as far as strings skipping when you go in. I mean, the even number, so in terms of the pick strokes themselves, if the pattern is of an even number, then I get to start the pattern on the same type of pick stroke every time. If it is an odd number, I have to reverse the picking every time, unless I can pull in, throw in a quick economy pick somewhere. But I hope that answers your question. I think that's what you mean. If it's not, I'm sorry. You can feel free to ask again, if not, in another way. I'm going to get into the next section here, though. So anyway, that was the tap and slide within. I think that's a really fun one. It doesn't really, it doesn't have to be such a big interval either, but A, B, C, D, B, C, D, E, A, G, all right, so now I'm at the 17th position. So your tap can actually buy you a moment to relocate your hand somewhere else, and then if you do expressive enough stuff coming out of it, it can actually just be a really interesting thing. Ooh, what kind of a ride are we going on here? So I love using that. I've been using it. I think I discovered using that around when I did my Labyrinth of Dreams album in 2014. So yeah, going on about 8, almost, well, it will soon be 8 years, because that was on New Year's Eve 2014 when I released that. So yeah, sometime mid 2014. Let's talk about some stretching stuff real quick. Again, I want to remind you, as I said in the beginning of this episode, we have 3 hand positions for stretching. Okay, you have relaxed, contracted, where basically your fingers are closer than you would expect with a 1 finger per fret rule, or 1 finger per fret guideline, where these other fingers need to just get the hell out of the way. And then you have, of course, expanded. And again, expanded is not this way, as we talked about last week, by the way, in the wide interval stretching episode. It isn't this. I know you have some play in your fingers doing this, but it's this. We're using the way our fingers bend naturally to our advantage. We're pointing that finger straight, and we're bending that finger in an array. Let's put your thumb right down the middle so that it's ready to go like that. So you can get almost about another inch of stretch by doing it this way, which means your fingers are pointing a little bit more down the fretboard toward the bridge than straight up and down. It looks like we're doing this, but it's really this. Okay, so get used to that nuance, because that's everything when it comes to stretching. Anyway, so the next method is probably the most obvious. Just reach further. Okay, so when I did this one earlier, anytime you're gonna, I've already done it a couple times in this episode too, but what if I want to reach a D? Do I have to slide and bring my whole hand over there? Good for sliding practice. But what if I just... Right? You can do 4 fingers per string, and you can stretch a little further, like... I can go even further than D if I go with, another octave or somewhere higher up in the fretboard. So just reach further and get out of that strictly 1 finger per fret thinking, and use more of the fretboard logic that I tell you, the ShredMentor fretboard logic that I went over in episode 49. Okay, so the next is the 3 modes strategy. I mentioned that, but this is a really good way, again, to sort of establish where you are based on knowing what the next shape over is. Whatever you happen to be doing, play the same idea in the next mode down and the next mode up, and then return to the original idea, because that's going to be the thing that makes you know where the notes are, what the new shape is, what new fingers you have to use, what new finger combinations you have to do, what are the speed bumps in that, so that you don't get all tripped up, basically. Okay, so good. I'm glad that. Thanks, Mike. I'm glad that that was it. That what you were going for there. Troy Brady's picking technique. I have heard the name, but I'm not familiar with Troy Brady. By the way, I will look him up after this. So, downward, upwards, pick slanting, downward, even notes, odd notes, upward, pick slanting. I have to look all that up. But thank you for bringing that to my attention, because now I'm going to have some other stuff to look into. Okay, so next, again, the 3 mode strategy, very simple. Just pick one. Don't just do 1 mode a day. Definitely don't do 1 mode for multiple days. Do 3 modes a day minimum, okay? Get to know your neighbors, basically. Start in one place. What's the next note over here? What's the whole shape that comes out of that? All right, let's go back where we were. Let's go back to that. Get used to going back and forth between them. What's the next neighboring shape on the other side of it? Get to know your neighbors on both sides. as far as the shape that you're playing. So if it's, you know, 4 notes, 3 notes on one string, 1 on the other. What do I do it here? It's a 4-finger approach to it. This has a roll in it. So is this. Right? So that's the 3 modes strategy there. Simple melody, doesn't have to be complex, but it could be, you know. Right? So yeah, it could be as involved as that as well. Whatever you do, do it in the mode below it, come back to the beginning, same place you did it again, go back to the one above it. You can do it in the other order. You can go to the one above first and then back through the, pass through the middle each time, so you go back over that common ground, establish where it is, look at which notes are being played in both cases. So here G and A and B, G, A, B. When I go down, I'm hitting G and A again, but it's the F sharp involved too. Just 3 notes at a time. You can use it anywhere on anything. So do, because you'll be a lot more familiar with what's over there, what's over there, what's the next note over, how far away is it. This is important. Okay, next is the octave repeating method. You might already know about this one. It's really handy with hexachords and on any guitar that has an even number of strings. So 6 string, 8 string, 10 string. My 10 string is over there. You can't see it on the camera. But anyway, G. Exactly the same melody. It's very easy to do this, but you can get some nice diagonal movement out of it, and it gets you totally out of the position that you started. 3rd position, 5th, 8th, anyway, yeah. So you can really move around a lot by just taking the same 6-note shape, move it up to an octave on the next 2 strings. So 6 string is great because you have like a low pair of strings, a middle pair of strings, and a high pair of strings. Talking about the pitch. Low pitch, the middle octave, and the high octave. It's the same shape, and you don't really have to deal with the 2nd and 3rd string as a shape. You can, but that's always the string combination that screws up the shape and makes everything off by a fret. So you don't really have to deal with it at all when you're dealing with an even number of strings. Once you deal with 7th string, if you started on the 7th string, then that's going to be where you end up having to deal with it. You'll have just one string left over on the other side. But if you start on your 6th string, or you start on your 8th string, or you start on your 10th string, if you have an even number of strings, this all works out great. And you don't have to deal with that thing with the major 3rd in it. Okay, so sweep arpeggios will get you out of the position because there's always some wide interval in there somewhere. So, you know, if I'm like in the 7th position, E minor, yeah. Improvising, can you tell? Oof. It's supposed to be major. Anyway, yeah, a lot of cool stuff you can do with arpeggios, just sliding between inversions and to neighboring notes, of course. At the very end, I finished with what the next topic is, which is sort of an Andy James kind of style. Take a minor arpeggio, kind of like an E minor chord shape, bar chord version. E, third, fifth octave. When you get to your third on the third string, slide from the third to the fifth, and then continue from the next position. Yeah, so at the fifth position, I ended up way up here, I guess the 19th position for that record. So yeah, some fun stuff with arpeggios you can do there. Now another third different non-sweep kind of arpeggio thing that you can do here, and this is a fun one too, is basically just, this is that pivot motion. And you're also contracting your hand. So your pinky is at 8 and your first finger comes up to 7. So your fingers are very close together for a mode. Down, pivot, all right, so yeah, there's a lot of odd with that second and third string thing. I'm used to doing that on a 7th string, so it's a little bit, I'm running into the third and second strings sooner than I'm used to. Anyway, yeah, so arpeggios don't have to be swept, and you can do fun stuff with arpeggios, but again, with finger positioning, movement's built right into it. That's the idea. Next, jump, let's see, jump sequence repetitions and instances in thirds. Oh yeah, okay. So yeah, basically it's like, I kind of did this already, but so, just every time, don't move. This is like the 3 modes strategy sort of, but you're not moving to the neighboring mode, you're moving 2 modes away. It's just a little bit, it's almost on the way to the more expressive, exaggerated kind of slide, but it's somewhere between expressive and exaggerated. So it's just a little bit more extreme than the regular, simple, expressive whole step or half step slide. It's just a third instead of a second. So you're in a gray area. Once you start to get into the interval of about a 4th or higher, then it starts to feel a little bit more exaggerated. Especially depending on how much of the musical time it takes up as well. Okay, use the diminished 7th framework. This is fun. So this is based on your 2 note per string diminished 7th, like what I showed you at the beginning. All right, what you basically do though, I'm not going to do it from this mode because the 6th and the raised 7th of harmonic minor do not actually have a note between them, even though it is what we think of as a minor third. In that case, it's a sharp 2nd. So what we're going to actually do is pick, there's 2 modes that this works in. It's actually just the same 2 shapes. I'm going to use A minor, or A harmonic minor rather, for this. And basically I'm going to use the 2 notes that are surrounding the 5th. I'm basically going to use the 2 note per string minor, no, actually 2 note per string diminished 7th with 1 note from harmonic minor added into it. So that note, that added note is going to be either E or A. So right? And that's just going to repeat in octaves anyway, because that's what the diminished seventh is doing anyway. F, B, F, B. That's the first note I play on each string. F, B, F, B, F, B. So it's the same exact thing. Just two shapes, whole step, half step, move down a fret, half step, whole step. And I'm calling that in ascending order there. So half step, whole step, then whole step, half step, move up a fret. Half step, whole step, then whole step, half step. Then here you move up 2 frets because of the tuning of the second and third string, but half step, whole step, and then whole step, half step. And I started at the 4th position, and now I'm at the 10th position. So these are all things that now... Now at the 12th. Well, I guess 11th position. Well, whatever, you know, I'm moving all over the place because I am able to kind of look for nearby cool melodic things I can do from wherever the last thing I did left me off. All right, so the last thing I'm going to talk about is using 4 fingers per string. I did mention this for a second, but don't forget, you can use more than just your 3. Don't forget to go past that. Sometimes, let's say I'm in A minor. All right, so you can move around a little bit more. It's less comfortable for sure, but if you need to get up there, you know, I could do it. 3 notes for string all the way to the C major. Notice how I went in with fingers 1, 2, 3 right away, because I'm already anticipating the next string. So I just put 1 finger per fret where possible, not here. I have to do a little stretch there. Then 1 finger per fret. Here, I already anticipate doing the 4 finger per string, so I'm using fingers 1, 2, and 3, and no pinky on that. And then there, and then that gives me 1 extra note to sort of bounce off of, so I don't have to do a repeat note with my melody. So, even right there, I went right back to using my pinky here because I don't need to stretch anymore. Very triplet friendly because I added that extra note. So let's see if I'm missing anything. Sequence chromatic runs that follow the scale pattern. Yep, you can totally do chromatic runs. Oh man, you know, I'm missing some of your comments. I'm sorry, man. I don't mean to leave out any of your comments here. Let me go back a little bit here. Cracking the Code is the name of Troy Brady's picking list. Cracking the Code. That all sounds very familiar. I haven't really checked him out before. Troy Brady. Michelangelo Battio is amazing. Andy James, Eric Johnson, Jeff Loomis, all names that I've heard of and I'm more familiar with their playing. If you have this style of picking. Okay, interesting. I will check that out. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. Chromatic runs. Oh, yeah, I love chromatic stuff. Yeah, sliding, basically. Sliding is the key with a lot of this stuff here, but yeah, either going chromatic or following whatever scale you're ultimately doing. I think that some of the, like when I did that position shifting zigzag earlier, there's one interval that kicks my ass every time. Right when I get around my lowest note is the 7th of harmonic minor, the raised 7. When I come back up, root 2nd, root 7. The slide is. So just kick my ass again. I did it wrong. Especially if I do it lower on the scale. If I'm shredding really as fast as I can, that is a huge speed bump because I have to suddenly be in 2 places at the same tiny little beat value. It's really pain in the ass. sequence chromatic runs that follow the scale pattern. I mean, I like doing sequences anyway. They're like a sort of more of a chromaticism kind of thing. I'm doing E, basically starting on E minor chord tones. Root, third, fifth, octave. Right, so a little bit of chromatic and pedal point, so somewhere in between being in a diatonic scale and then just filling in all the space in between with chromatic. Really enjoy your playing and concept of how to use the whole fretboard to get from point A to point B. Austin. Thank you, man. I appreciate that, Mike, and I appreciate you participating and being here tonight too. So thank you for that. And I have some cool stuff to look up afterward too. So thanks, man. Randy Rhoads on his solo on the tribute album Harmonic Minor. God, that's been a little while since I heard that, man. Yeah, I do remember a section like that. It's another good way to kind of get used to playing. Thank you. You gave me one other cool method that I forgot about. Using one note as a pedal tone and moving other intervals around in relation to it. I forget exactly what his solo was, so I'm paraphrasing his stuff. Right? So you can kind of, ride that out, and then wherever you decide to treat it like an exit ramp, wherever you want to get off, there you go, and now you're in that position of the scale. So anyway, yeah, I know I was a little fast and loose about this tonight, but I hope that this gave some, some amount of food for thought for you to try some of these options out. And so, I know for a lot of us, it's easy to forget to get the hell out of the position that you're playing in, but just try to remember in the future, like, it's the more different positions of the scale that you can use in your ideas, the more interesting what you play is going to sound. Just to simplify things. I mean, there's a lot of great stuff you can do in one position, so I don't mean to contradict. In this case, I don't mean to contradict all the traditional guitar teachers that say try to get the most out of the position you're in, get the most out of what's under your hand. Yes, that's still very good, but let's say, for the sake of really interesting music we haven't heard before, trying some really wild things that might not just be conveniently right under your hand might be something you want to try to reach for on purpose. So this hopefully gives you a few methods that you can use to get out of that position, that one position thinking, and definitely get out of that one finger per fret kind of guideline. Use it when possible, because that's your chance to relax. But as I said, there's like three hand positions. There's relaxed, which is one finger per fret. Contracted, where it's less than one finger per fret. You have fewer frets than there are fingers. So your pinky and your first finger might be like one fret away from each other, or even the same fret in some cases. So there's that pivot motion I told you about. I kind of wish a teacher told me this. I had to figure out, this is 20 some years of teaching myself since I stopped taking lessons. I've been playing for over 30 years, so going on 31 years of playing, but I'm sharing a lot of my own trial and error, the fruits of that, with you to help you where I wish I had somebody helping me when I was younger. I'd love to have a full-on conversation with you and pick your brain a little bit. Yeah, man. Well, Mike, I invite you to do it. Why don't we schedule a coaching call? See if this is more of what you want to talk about. If not, that's fine too. But head over to ShredMentor.com. Fill out the form and go ahead and book that call. I'd love to talk with you. I wish I had more time to do it on the live show, but as you see, I always overbook my shows by 24 minutes now. My wife's going to kill me. I need to get going for the night. Yeah, I had a very busy teaching day, which means my wife has been taking care of our son all day. So anyway, man, yeah, thanks, Mike. If you're serious about that, I'd be happy to do it. Book a coaching call with me. Just we'll just talk, see if there's if there's something that I can help you even further with. I'd just like to see what you're doing, see what's working for you, what's not, and yeah, let's do it. Anyway, that is it for tonight, and I will see you all, everybody, next week. Hope to see you next week at least. Have a fantastic. No, wait, Thanksgiving's not this week anyway. Have a fantastic week and weekend then. Yeah, that'll do. Anyway, I'll see you guys next week, and rock on until next